Life in a covered wagon during the Old West was not the glamorous adventure people imagine when they think of the pioneers. It was raw, punishing, and often deadly. Families who left their homes in the East weren't just seeking fortune. Many were running from hardship, chasing rumors of fertile land and new beginnings. But the road west was a nightmare disguised as hope. The journey stretched for months across barren plains, jagged mountains, and raging rivers. Every creak of the wagon wheels was a reminder that one broken axle, one lost ox, or one storm could destroy everything. The wagons were cramped, only about 4 feet wide and 10 feet long, packed with barrels of flour, salt, dried meat, and a few personal treasures. People slept on hard wooden floors, surrounded by the constant stench of livestock and smoke from campfires that never seemed to burn hot enough to cook a decent meal. Each morning began long before sunrise. The travelers rose to the cry of the oxen and the cold bite of the wind. The first sound was often the driver's whip cracking through the mist, pushing the animals forward before the sun crested the horizon. Breakfast, if it could be called that, was usually stale bread or beans left from the night before. Then came endless hours of walking beside the wagon, not riding, because space was too precious and the weight too heavy. The heat of the day turned the wagons into ovens, while dust storms made breathing nearly impossible. Fine powder filled every fold of clothing, every pore, every breath. By nightfall, when the horizon bled red, families were too tired to speak. They simply ate, prayed, and collapsed under the stars, unsure what the next sunrise would bring. The threat of death was constant. Diseases like cholera, dysentery, and smallpox swept through wagon trains like wildfire, leaving trails of fresh graves beside the dusty road. Children were often the first to fall ill. There were no doctors, no medicine, only desperate prayers and the hope that tomorrow would be better. Many wagons carried makeshift coffins, knowing they might need them before the journey's end. Graves were sometimes disguised to prevent wolves or grave robbers from disturbing the dead. Every burial meant another hole in the group's spirit, another reminder that the wilderness showed no mercy. The weather could turn on them in an instant. One day might bring unbearable heat, the next, a violent storm that tore canvas from wagons and flooded the plains. Rivers were among the deadliest obstacles. Crossing them was a gamble. One misstep from an ox, and the wagon could tip, drowning everything inside. Families watched helplessly as their food, clothing, and keepsakes floated away in the current. Lightning storms terrified even the bravest men, striking close enough to set the grass ablaze. Windstorms buried tracks, and snow trapped travelers for days without food. Many froze to death within sight of the trail, their bones later discovered by passing caravans. Loneliness was another quiet enemy. The trail stretched endlessly, with no sign of civilization for weeks. The silence could crush the mind. The only sounds were wagon wheels creaking, oxen groaning, and the distant howl of coyotes at night. Families depended on one another for strength, yet tempers flared under the strain. Arguments over food, direction, or exhaustion sometimes tore groups apart. People vanished. Some wandered off and never returned. Others were taken by bandits or Native American raids. The fear of attack was constant, though in truth, disease and starvation killed far more pioneers than conflict ever did. Women bore the heaviest burdens. They cooked, cleaned, tended fires, and nursed the sick, all while walking hundreds of miles in heavy skirts. Many gave birth on the trail, often without help or clean supplies. A few hours after childbirth, they would climb back onto the wagon seat or continue walking. Children grew up fast, learning to gather firewood, care for animals, and keep watch at night. There was no childhood on the trail, only survival. Even small joys, like a piece of candy or a letter from home, felt like miracles. Food was always a struggle. Flour, bacon, beans, and coffee were staples, but supplies ran out quickly. Hunting was dangerous, and wild game wasn't always available. Some pioneers boiled leather straps or chewed bark to stay alive. Water, when found, was often contaminated. Many died from drinking it anyway, too desperate to care. Hunger gnawed at their spirits, turning every day into a slow march through pain and fatigue. Yet despite the horrors, the human spirit refused to break. There was a stubborn hope that somewhere beyond the next mountain or river lay freedom, land, opportunity, and peace. Every sunset was a small victory, every mile another step toward a dream worth dying for. The pioneers may have been battered by storms, haunted by loss, and buried beneath the prairie dust, but they built